Hello everyone, Namaskaram. Welcome to our live prawn export workshop. Thank you so much for attending. This is a very overwhelming turnout, very healthy turnout as well. Thank you, Chairman Sir, for your attendance as well, MPEDA team. My name is Mohit. I am from the Singapore-India Partnership Office from Singapore. And to open the session, to kick off the session, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to invite you to say a few words, please.
Yeah, good morning and good afternoon to all the Singaporean people. And I'm very glad such a webinar is going to happen now. And really, I think it's a new normal. I think COVID has given us a new opportunities, even though it has given us a lot of problems. At the same time, I think we need to look for new solutions. So this is one such solution. Otherwise, you think it is possible to have 73 people going to either Singapore or you guys coming to India and organizing such an important meeting? It's not possible normally. And you and all of us are sitting in our own offices and then spending time here. So without a visa, without any passport, and without any such journeys and all that. So it's really so we should see the positive things even in the difficult times. So this is one such positive aspect. So I'm very happy. The Singapore people, especially Mr. Mohit, and I could see some familiar faces. Mr. Audrey is also there. Namaste to you, and all other people from my MPEDA staff also are equally participating, and most of the farmers. I think most important is the farmers. These farmers from several states. I think from not only from Andhra Pradesh but also from other states like West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, and all those places also have participating now. And I could see one Professor Lee. Professor Lee is also there. Hi to Professor Lee, and namaste to you. And I don't know whether I have missed any of the important persons, but anyway. So first of all, I thank the Singapore team from the Singapore-India partnership team, and for taking a lot of interest in Indian seafood. I know, I think 2-3 times the officers have come from Singapore. They came to my office here in Kochi, and they are showing interest in not only live shrimps, but also the soft crabs, soft shell crabs also. I hope it will be taken to some logical conclusion. I think the series of meetings is going on between the two parties, and I hope some concrete steps will be taken in the near future, and some kind of an understanding, some kind of a contract can be signed between Indian farmers and also the Singaporean traders. So this is also one thing. And in addition to that, today's program is on live shrimps. As you know, India is one of the major suppliers of shrimps in the world. I think we are number one shrimp supplier to the United States. We have become a major supplier to China and also to other countries like European Union and all that. So shrimp is our strength. So especially our Vanamai shrimp, even though it's a very exotic species, but still all credit goes to our great farmers who have understood the aquaculture, how to do this aquaculture of a foreign variety called Vanamai. So when our own black tiger had some problems, so they have adopted Vanamai, and now they are number one in the production, number one in exports also. So really great. My congratulations to all the farmers and also all our exporters, processors and exporters for making us is almost about $5 billion industry. The shrimp is a $5 billion industry, and a lot of potential now. And as you know, Government of India has given a task of doubling the exports, doubling the production and doubling the exports. So they are saying Right now we have about 46,000 crores rupees. 46,000 crores is our exports in 2019-20. So now in another 5 years, they are asking us, they are asking the farmers to produce more. They are asking our processors to process more and export to 1 lakh crores. So that is more than almost more than double the current levels. So that is the targets given by the government now. So in achieving these targets, I'm sure many ways are there. Not only supplying, not only exporting the frozen ones. See, normally 95% of our exports are in frozen form. So now that is okay. That has been established now. And now the new varieties, I mean, the new areas, new markets is one thing, and then new diversification of different aquaculture species. That is another activity we have to concentrate now, and also new forms of these products. So in that, the live shrimp is such an important one, because I know many countries, they prefer to eat live shrimps, live fish, live crabs, and all that. So anything live, it fetches much better price also. So I was told China and other countries, but unfortunately we are not able to supply these live shrimps due to so many technological issues, because live shrimp will be its life maybe within a few hours after taking over after harvesting. So if you don't apply, the longevity is a problem. So now how to preserve it, how to keep it live for 24 hours, that is the challenge. And for that, I was told that the Singapore has got a technology of some aerosol technology, and that technology can be adopted in India, and so that we'll be able to export the live shrimps also, and also they will get much better price. I'm sure some premium price also will be available. But there are a lot of other issues, and to understand all these issues, this webinar will definitely help. A lot of participation is there, and everybody is thinking how to do it, what are the issues, what are the risks involved, and what are the returns involved. All those issues are there. So to make them understand all these things, this webinar has been arranged, and I sincerely congratulate all my officers, especially Mr. Anil Kumar, and all other people who has taken a keen interest in these webinars. In the last I think last 1 month or so, we never had any webinars in the past, to tell you frankly. But nowadays, everything is webinars only. Everything is virtual buyer-seller meets and all that. So I'm very happy. MPEDA has is taking the new normal. This is all new normal. So this new normal we are also adopting. So my congratulations to all my officers for doing it, and sincere thanks to all the participants, all the former participants from different states of India, and also the entire team from Singapore. I think Mr. Mohit, Mr. Professor Lee, and Miss Audrey Tan, all these people, my sincere thanks. And without, I think I spoken. I didn't want to speak, but since you asked me, so I started. So it will be very difficult to put a full stop now. So I'll stop here, and all the best to all the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, sir. At this point, can I invite Miss Audrey to say a few words, please?
Hello, good afternoon, Chairman. How are you? Namaste.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Well, thank you to all our participants, as well as our fellow MPEDA colleagues. Thank you for joining us and organizing this event with us. Very special thanks to Chairman, and his team at MPEDA. We've had such a time of partnership, and good collaboration, and we're really thankful for that, for this opportunity to work with your agency. This particular project, we have been experimenting with it for a while now, and I'm glad that we have the opportunity to share with our participants today. You're so right about it being the new normal. We also have all the participants, possibly for everyone who is interested in this topic, or from the east and west coast of India, which on a normal trip, if we're traveling to India, we would not be able to cover so much ground and meet so many people. So this is really a very rare treat for us. I would also like to thank Prof. Lee from the Aquaculture Innovation Center, who has taken time to share some of his what he has discovered through working with MPEDA on the trials, on the live prawn trials, which he will share more during the session later. So maybe a little bit of introduction for myself and my team. For the participants, I'm Audrey. I come from the Singapore India Partnership Office, which is within the Ministry of Trade and Industry. This is an agency that is similar to MOCI in India's context. So really what we seek to do is to work on projects that India would find beneficial, as well as Singapore could also work with India on in a meaningful way. And we discovered, that there is a very strong mandate and support for the aquaculture export program. We understand that the agency is looking at doubling its exports. I think the last time I heard was doubling the exports targets. I'm not sure whether the targets have since gone up. But suffice to say, as targets are usually, want to do, they only go in one direction, which is up, right? But essentially, we thought that there would be an opportunity to partner, given Singapore's, first of all, some of our strengths as a regional trading hub in seafood, some of our development that way. We also have certain technologies and innovations because we are such a small island state. We do have certain technologies that help with increasing yield, increasing productivity, and extending the life of products with some tweaks in technology and innovation. So this is where Prof. Lee from the Aquaculture Innovation Center has been able to contribute to the conversation. So I think that for a lot of you, you must be understanding that, Singapore is a very small market. So I hope that, together with my MPEDA colleagues, you don't see this platform as, where you export to Singapore as the final destination. I think what we hope to share in the course of sharing, you will realize that the application and the market for such a product, as Chairman said, many markets like Dubai, like the Middle East, like China, there is a certain premium for this particular product. And if Singapore can contribute to the learning and the experience and the best practice of that, we would think that this partnership has indeed served both Singapore as well as India's purpose. So we hope that you keep an open mind as Prof. Lee shares, even frankly, if you use it for domestic application, in terms of improving the yield of the product, of the processed products that emerge. So these are all possible applications, which I think Prof. Lee will touch briefly upon. So once again, thank you to MPEDA, my partners, as well as all the participants for your interest in today's topic. And we're very happy for the partnership to bring this about. And with that, I hand it back to Mohit to take us to the next part of the program.
Thank you very much for that lovely speech, Ms. Audrey. Now at this point, can I invite Dr. Karthikeyan, please, to say a few words, please.
A very good afternoon to all. It's indeed a very great pleasure to address this gathering. As our chairman has pointed out, we had almost a year interaction with the Singapore team and the joint working group which has been formed to formulate certain schemes. Met almost 3 times, and a lot of issues have been discussed on short shell crab and live shrimp export and all. And as shrimp, as Chairman pointed out, shrimp contributes to the major of our seafood export, and it is being exported in different forms rather than live live form. All of the forms it is exported, and we get a good price for the shrimp. But though there is a market for live shrimp, but the export is not happening because of the technology gap. And I think Singapore has come out with the technology, and it has been standardized in Indian conditions. And there is a possibility for exploring the international markets using the technology which has been developed by Singapore. And I think this particular webinar, where most of our exporters and farmers have taken a keen interest to participate, to learn what is there in this technology, so that they can get at least a little higher margin by exporting in live condition. So this particular webinar will help them to know the technology and the demand for the live shrimp in different markets. If it has been addressed, then our farmers and processors can get benefited out of this webinar, and we'll be able to have a better relationship by exporting more quantity of live material to Singapore. So I wish this webinar gives a good idea about all this possibilities for live shrimp export to various markets. So I wish this webinar a great success. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karthikeyan. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of the opening remarks session. Now we'll move on to the presentations. Just so you know, everyone has been put on mute. If you're not on mute, I suggest you please turn off your mic. During the presentation, if you have any questions, please type it out in the chat box. There will be a question and answer session at the end, and your questions will be taken then and addressed one by one. Okay, thank you. And with that, I'd like to invite Professor Lee to kick off the first presentation on the export of the potential of live prawn transportation. Professor Lee, please.
Thank you, Anil. First, let me say good morning to everybody, and special thanks to our MPEDA colleagues, especially Chairman Anil Kumar. It's nice to see you again, and of course our Singapore-India Partnership Office, that all along helping us so much in understanding the situation in India and see how can a small country like Singapore can support it. So the presentation I'm going to give later on is basically what I did earlier this year at Kochi, but I add on new informations because we focus a lot in technology and see how the technologies that is currently available can be translated into aquaculture. And in this particular case, you're looking into transporting live seafood. Also, if can't make it live, at least you make it fresh. So that is the intentions. And the whole end point is to increase the value of the produce by the farmer. So I will start sharing the slides, see whether it works or not. Okay, is everything okay here? Mohit, can you see that?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Okay, so this is the first slide. Basically, the title is, of course, exporting the live seafood. I strongly believe anything is possible in this world right now. And for Aquaculture Innovation Center, this is unique setup in Singapore because we understanding the importance of food security and how small country as Singapore, we need to have a strong food flow through Singapore port so that we can have some form of the food in terms of crisis, and at the same time can produce certain percentage of the nutrition requirement for the country. Now, since this is emerging industry and it's very interesting industry, it's very, very inclusive, and we can see businesses outside the farming community can actually partake in this particular initiative. As a result, we pull all institutions in Singapore together, right? Put them all together so we see that all the university, polytechnic in Singapore, actually members of the Aquaculture Innovation Center. And this is good setup because we are minimizing cannibalism, rivalry. In fact, by putting together, we share the resources, both infrastructures and the talent. And just a brief outline on the advantage of the so-called the aquaculture over capture fishery, because our audience here, friends here, are mainly from the aquaculture sectors and not from the fishery. And we know why we go for aquaculture is because we want to control the process. That's the bottom line. You see, we want to control the environments, we want to control the uncertainty so that we can have a so-called secure income or outcome. Now, the key advantage of the so-called marketing live seafood, as what our chairman has said, is basically higher value, as simple as that. So if you give live seafood, perception is the animal is healthy. So basically healthy tends to be giving higher value for that reason. And of course, if animals are alive, certainly you don't worry about whether they're spoiled or quality is bad or whatsoever. So that's the reason why live fish to most laymen is healthy and is deserve a higher price. Now, the shipping of live seafood obviously is very challenging. Has been tried for decades. So short distance is really not an issue. You just basically put the fish in the water and they ship to the destination as fast as possible. But for long distance, for example, from India to Singapore, or India to Dubai, so you talk about multiple hours, that kind of journey, and facing a lot of different environments, exposures. So that become very challenging endeavors. And of course, when that is challenging, it means the cost goes up. That will affect your profitability. Now, when we look into this aspect, basically is we want to make sure the quality retained. Okay, so you make sure that whatever you ship over, you reduce the mortality. That's a fundamental. If all dead, then we sell as a frozen seafood. So you don't have to worry about these conditions to maintain the animal alive. So when we look into this aspect, then of course we have to look into the packaging. So the whole thing is the packaging has to be unique. It has to be able to maintain the certain temperature to avoid the fluctuation in temperature, and also the rough handling, because you go through so many different transshipment conditions, the handling process, either you're exposed to extreme hot sun or due to vibrations, things like that will affect the outcome of the produce. Now, of course, the last part is also very challenging is the government regulations. And there are many countries will not allow you to ship so-called live animals, but somehow seafood is okay. So seafood is lesser regulated compared to the land animals. So for that, so we always start with the live seafood and see can we ship that one through, and due to the a bit more lenient in terms of the government regulations. But still, we prefer the farmers work with the proper or experienced importer or freight forwarder, because that's not our cup of tea. It's better get another party to handle that part for us. So what is what we need to prepare? In this case, we look in the live stream because of the interest is in live stream, but it doesn't mean we cannot translate this part into the fishes. We can. So the first criteria when we look into this and work with our MPEDA colleagues and also our farmers friends in Andhra Pradesh, we're looking into first is the temperature. We all understand that in the temperature, you either preserve the meat or you also cause the animals, live animal, into so-called pseudo-hibernation. It makes them sleep. So when they sleep, they reduce the metabolism. And also they reduce movement. So they have less of the so-called losses of the legs and claw that would affect the value of the animals. And not to mention when the animal later on revive back to the active stage, having injury will cause infection and they also have premature mortality. But if you lower it too low, you may have a problem because certain species of the animals cannot survive at low temperature. So likewise in stream, there are different species as well. And Vename is okay. That one is because from the Pacific Oceans, so they are customized to the so-called cold water. But if you talk about freshwater prawns, the water tends to be warmer and their system is not able to handle if the temperature get too low. And of course, you talk about if the animals is from the sea, you have the salinity issue. You make sure that you don't want to over dilute that. So if the water salinity is become too low, the animal may not be able to survive properly. So all this environment you have to consider in that. Now, in the hibernations, making the animals go to sleep using temperature. So as I mentioned earlier on, is the species. So black tiger prawns in freshwater prawns, actually they are not that good in handling low temperature. So fortunately, most of our farmers in India are producing the Vename stream, so which means that is not a major issue. And also the harvest area, because harvest area, you talk about the first pond and the last pond, there's a big gap in durations. So the first pond may be subject to harsher environment, in other words, the stressful environment compared to the last pond. So that is something one has to be considered when you harvest by segments or in a way that you minimize the first and the last pond, the time taken for them to go into the preparation tank. And of course, the season, yeah. So if you have it during with the season or summer season, they make a difference in terms of the quality of the produce. So what we try to do is basically reduce the stresses that we give to the animals. Now, the third bullet is actually how you pack the animals. That's important, because if you see, when we ship frozen animals, it's not an issue with the weights because they are dead. So you can pack as heavy as much until the box collapses. There's only limitations, or too heavy for the handler to lift up the box. But in this case, it's not. Because the animals are alive inside the box. So if you pack too much, you actually compress the bottom layer and they die. Okay, so that is the issue, that how much can we do? So later on, MPEDA presents the process, how this experiment was done. At that time, it's because we want to make sure that it works. That's why we are not packing to the way that commercially might pack, yeah, the animal in the box. So that's why you don't see that kind of so-called productivity or cost effectiveness. But moving forward, we will discuss on this later on. Somebody maybe from packaging industry might come in, yeah, because you can design proper boxes that can actually reduce that kind of direct stress on the animal by having a shelf, things like that. Now, the last bullet is, because these are live animals, you have to give them that kind of the environment as they were alive. That is humidity in the water, for example. And without max water, that is the most important thing, because if you add too much water to it to keep them high humidity in that sense, you are increasing the cost of the logistic. And oxygen, that is important as well. Okay, so oxygen, humidity, these two factors we have to consider in how to harmonize the whole process without affecting the so-called the cost effectiveness of the logistic. So this is what we do in general during the experimentations with our friends in Andhra Pradesh. And so basically, we try to pack the animals, not compress them, okay? So that, and also prevent them from moving around. That's very important, because when they move, and then they actually cause damage to themselves, yeah? And also humidity, that's important, because if you don't give them enough humidity, they dry up, they die, yeah? Because these are still sea animals, they need water. But the key is, how can we pack with humidity and not without water? Now, of course, high oxygen environments are important because of the reducing of the water, okay, or the amount of water that the animals are exposed to. So the water is carrying oxygen for this animal. They still breathe through the gills. And you want to make sure that you must have enough oxygen to compensate that shortage. And of course, the building ammonia, the live animal, they still secretes, okay, the fecal material. So there's ammonia gases coming out. So you have to reduce that as well. And maintain the temperature, the ideal temperature that they sleep through the whole process. Okay, the moment you harvest, you pack them, they start to sleep. And then until you reach the destination, you unpack them, take them out and put inside the tank, revive them. That is the whole duration. The temperature has to be maintained. If not, we know as you go, the temperature gets higher and higher. So the animal will wake up in the middle of the shipment, and that's not good, because they start to move around and they injure themselves. And also because they're active, because they're awake, active, so they consume more oxygen. So because of that, they will be deprived of oxygen and they will have higher mortality. So the best result that we are trying to do is, together with our MPEDA colleague, is basically you want to pack them in a water and pure oxygen system. Okay, and the water that is hopefully without water. And the preparations of animals, that's important, okay? So this is from our experience when we did many trials in Singapore before we moved to India and tried to repeat the experiment. And we encountered many failures, okay? Both here in Singapore and also in India. And as a result, we discovered we need to have healthy animals. And that makes sense as well, because the packing the animals in the stressful environment, in other words, you don't give them water, you put them to sleep, right? And it's such a type of unnatural situation. If the animals are not healthy, they cannot withstand that kind of stress. So as a result, they tend to die by the time you try to revive them. Okay, and also depends on the animals where they were found. So the water sanity is very important. And we do want to have high salt. The reason we will discuss that later on, because when you have salt, I cannot introduce the fine bubble into the system. So we try to build conditions at very low salinity, right, at 5 ppt at this moment overnight. And when to cool down slowly, okay, you cool down, so you want to put them to sleep close. You don't want to be too drastic drop in temperature. So basically 30 degrees, that is the ambient temperature or water temperatures, to 15 over 2 hours using cooler. Yeah, and then of course the packing, as we say, at this moment we pack very loosely. The reason is because we want to see whether it works or not, and also just use existing boxes. It's not a custom design box. Plus, we are not layered them too high, avoid compressions on the bottom layer and cause mortality to the animals. So it's a very loosely packed. But the whole purpose is, can the animals survive in these conditions, for a period of time and revive once we open the box? So the conditions that we push very hard is actually waterless conditions. Okay, so we try to reduce water, and zero water is possible. So what we did was actually give them wet paper towels. So it's paper towels. Of course, you can use any absorbent. At this moment, we use paper because it's easily available, it's cheap as well. So you just soak the water with water, the paper with water, just wet it. So that will give them that humidity the animals require. And then we gas it with oxygen. Okay, so again, when you gas oxygen, you have the issue of whether you want to put the bag outside the box or back inside the box, because you want to keep the oxygen within and not to leak out. Now the challenge is, if we bag the whole box, then you have problem with stacking the boxes. So again, that open up a lot of discussion for the packaging material people to come in. That is, can I seal the box without the bag outside the box? Because having the plastic box outside, tied it, right, and then to pump in oxygen, that box, the paper bags, plastic bag outside the box will make the stacking of the box very difficult. Yeah, so that is some innovations must have to come in to fix this issue. So the fifth bullet is basically we have to maintain the cool temperature. Yeah, so we want to maintain the temperature, and of course the temperature will go up as it progressed. We are using just basically the ice pack. Those gel pack, easily available, the blue gel pack from the market. So again, this one can be innovated and produce a specially pack for this purpose. But what we do is now we buy everything off the shelf. Just get everything off the shelves and put it in and see whether it works or not. So which means that gives us a lot of buffer for improvement or improve the result. So what we try to do is maintain the temperature, okay, at about 16 to 19 degrees. That's a range, because it will keep on increasing over the 12 hours period. Again, we choose 12 hours is because we're looking at the logistic that from Andhra Pradesh to Singapore, for example, is about flight about 7 hours. Then you have pre-harvest and pre-shipment and post-shipment time requirement. So roughly about 12 hours should be enough. So we're going to see whether can animals survive waterless conditions at this temperature, okay, high humidity, packed with oxygen inside the box, able to survive and revive after we unpack them. So the conditions that our colleagues from Singapore said to us is actually when the animals are alive, which means they have to survive up 72 hours. After we unpack them, we take them out from the box, put them back into the tanks for them to recover from the stress. And they should stay alive for 72 hours. That's the end point. It's not the first 24 hours. Because we have seen a lot of the so-called shipping of live animals. Yes, when you unbox them, they are jumping up. They're alive, they're jumping, they're moving. But you put in the tank, within 24 hours, they all died. Okay, so basically that is not the end point we're looking at. And also very unsightly when you see the animal in the supermarket, for example, where the animal's dying at the bottom of the tank. So our criteria is we want to make sure that we don't, the animal must be able to survive at 72 hours after unpacking. So this graph shows that the survival rate, okay, after 72 hours, you can see, yes, over time, there's reductions in the survival. Some will die, but at 72 hours, we still have quite a good survival rate for the animals. So both based on the supermarket, the people, they say, the animal should be able to sow, by 3 days, not dragging for too long. So this type of the number is acceptable for them. But to us, of course, we are not happy. We say there are still room, okay, to improvement. We want to achieve above 90% survival if possible. And the next thing we also look at is how to use fine bubble. I will discuss fine bubble later on. So fine bubble is basically a very small bubble with a diameter of smaller than 50 microns, very small. Now, early on, we want to see how can this fine bubble able to enhance the so-called the survival of the animals, when we go through the same process. And the result, we see that the blue color one, okay, the blue colors are control. So the control, you can see that the survival at 24 hours, 48 and 72, okay, you can see the difference of the conditioning. So you condition the animal for 24 hours before pack, and 48 or 72. So you can see that by looking at the blue bars, if you conditions the animals, okay, the animal, of course, will survive better. So it's very important in condition. But we don't want to condition for too long because there's the so-called the cost in holding animal in the conditioned environment for too long. So here we see minimally you need to condition the animals for 24 hours, yeah, and the 48 hours, and then compare, and then the slight improvement over 72 hours, right? So that is the difference. So you can see that preferably you have the conditioned animals for 2 days, yeah, to achieve so-called good survival. But when you put in the fine bubble, we discover that we don't really have the condition for too long. So basically, you can actually cut short the conditions environment. So this experiment shows us that the fine bubbles in stream, it doesn't improve the survival after 72 days, after the 12 hours of shipment, right? But it improves the pre-shipment time. That is, when you pre-conditions the animal, you don't need to pre-condition them for 48 hours. You can condition them even as short as 24 hours to get good result. And that become very important thing because certain farm, you may not have the luxuries of holding the animals, condition them for 2 days or 3 days until the animals are ready to be packed and shipped. You want to cut short that durations. So by having fine bubble in the system, when the preconditions the animals to the conditions that can be shipped, by cut short by 1 day, that could be very, very significant in terms of the cost and also logistic mobility. So this is what we see from the fine bubble technology. Now, another thing we look at is there are certain species doesn't actually handle the cold temperature very well. For example, the Kurama prawns. And some of you may recognize this gentleman in the photograph, Dr. Farshad, Blue Aqua International. He's well known in India. So basically, he's on his hand, the fingers, that this is the actually it's a tiger prawn, so to speak. But it's different species. Okay, it's Kurama prawns, and you can find in Indian Oceans. So this particular species can withstand cold temperature. So when you lower the temperature, they just sleep very well. So they can survive without water, like in this box, okay, for 24 hours without any issue. So these are the natural species that we can use, okay, for shipping life. So instead of using the existing species, we should look into other species, okay, that maybe in India, you guys can discover them and do study on them and do research, and then pick them up. And this become the farmable species that meant for live shipment. So this is just one example to just look at extreme. There are certain species of the animals tends to be better candidate for shipping live. Now, the fine bubble, okay, just want to touch on that because this is the emerging technologies and we want to see how can this be used in terms of aquaculture or in shipping of live animals. It's very important. And I'm in the committee setting. The standard is the technical committee TC 281, and it's championed by the Fine Bubble Industry Association from Japan. So Japan actually got many beautiful technologies. Okay, but the translation of technologies or the utilization technologies is not as good as other countries. So that's why we find it very exciting when we go to in Japan. We actually pick up a lot of this good thing and then we translate it. So fine bubble is very interesting technology, and I think we find it in aquaculture itself is very good. So just to define fine bubble, it means actually the bubbles, okay, smaller than 100 microns is 0.1 mm, that kind of size, okay. So anything below that, okay, is considered fine bubble. Of course, you can have micro bubble, is between 1 to 100 microns, or less than 1 microns, that is called ultra fine bubbles. It doesn't really matter how you define it, but when we do our applications of the fine bubble technology, we discover in aquaculture or in agriculture, that is in live animals or plants, we find that fine bubbles itself, anything less than 100 micron is very effective in terms of the application to improve the functionality. Now, just to show you how it works. So the characteristic, if the bubble is big, usual bubble, when you do the aerations in the tank, okay, when you have these aerations to try to improve the dissolved oxygen, if the bubble is big, we call it mini bubble, millimeter size, they just go up to the surface and burst, okay, that's all. That's why the DO, okay, level is always low unless you keep on pumping the air, non-stop pumping, Okay, so that is the so-called logistic nightmare when you try to ship live animals with constant bubbling in the water to keep the oxygen level high in the water. But if you have microbubbles or fire bubbles, it's very different because they stay in the water. Okay, they stay in the water and they don't go up and burst into the air. They get smaller, mind you. Okay, they get smaller, but they stay in the water in a way much, much longer. All right. And when they burst, eventually when they burst, they create that kind of bomb. For example, you can see here, the size of the bubble. So you can see that if it's 10 micron bubble, when the pressure in and out is 0.3. When at 1 micron, okay, the pressure in and out is 3 atmospheric. But when they go down to 0.1 micron bubble, very small bubble, which is still under 5 bubble category, that is a difference of 30 atmospheric pressure. So it's basically a tiny bomb. It just pop, shoot up, and it's a 30 atmospheric pressure difference when they expose. And that's why this fine bubble is very useful in killing the bacteria. So when you fuse fine bubble into the water, okay, preparing the animals, you're actually killing away all the bacteria potentially coming with the animals that will cause animal high mortality. So this is actually sanitizing water. You can actually sanitize it. And we have scientists using it to sanitize the tables or use it for washing, actually very effective. But for us in aquaculture, we just want to use it to carry oxygen because it doesn't disappear into the surface. It stays in the water. So if I can pump in 5 bubble oxygen, okay, basically this thing will stay in the water for days, okay, and I don't have to keep on pumping. Just pump them once, saturated the water with the 5 bubble, and later on this fiber will stay there for days. Some generator claim that they even last for months, okay, and that become very powerful for the shipping of the live animals, knowing that we can increase the dissolved oxygen in the water, and we don't have to worry about, you know, lacking oxygen for the animals to survive the journey. So you can find that this fiber technology is getting popular. That's why we into setting the standard. It's very important because there will be some manufacturer claim they have fine bubble generator. In fact, they are not fine bubble. They are particles generator. There are a lot of particles inside, but they are not bubble full of air. So we need to set a standard to protect our customer or consumer when they buy this equipment. So another part is the look into the fish, how it was preserved. Basically, it's very powerful. So if you have 5 bubble, okay, filled with nitrogen, okay, nitrogen bubble, and then you can see that the animals actually preserve very well. If you're using nitrogen 5 bubbles compared to normal ice water. So this is experiment done in Thailand, yeah, in collaboration with the professor there, and you can see that after 3 days in refrigerator, store under 5 bubble in these conditions, of course, or compared to the ice water, and the meat, there's a difference. So after it's fried, and then the one under normal ice water basically is the texture degraded. It's not as good as the so-called the 5 bubbles water treated dead fish. This here is not live fish. So you can see that you can actually preserve the seafood. If you treat them with 5 bubble, of course, you use nitrogen in this case. You don't want to have oxygen inside the water, so that reduce the oxidation, reduce the viscosity of the oil. So for living animals, you want to bubble pure oxygen. For dead animal preserving the meat, you want to bubble nitrogen. So these are the applications, variation, but the generator is the same. So for our case here, we are looking into how to ship fish, because besides stream, we're also looking into in the future, if I move into the fish is much more challenging compared to stream, because fish, I cannot really put them in dry form, okay, and put them to sleep and sleep for 12 hours, a bit more challenging. So fish, at this moment, we think we still need some form of water. So if that's the case, then the cost of the water is there. And can we reduce the water as much as possible? That is the stocking density while we're shipping the animal to avoid the cost of the logistic. So in this case, we're using the ornamental fish for ease of experiment. Yeah, because if we use food fish, we need a bigger bag. Again, it's not easy to do that kind of experiment at this moment. So right now, we just want to have so-called quick and easy experiment to see whether can the fine bubble, okay, water allow us to pack more fish per unit water. That's most important thing. So we're using the ornamental fish. In this case, it's molly, and then it's fresh water, and then to see what happened when we look at the mortality. That is, can the animal survive? So you can see the protocol. This is what we did here. Okay, we look at the water quality, we look at survival of the animals, for 2 days, and also look at the bacterial counts, because when the animal dies, bacterial load goes up in the water. So we're going to look at all those things. So basically, in the nutshell, you can see that things that cause animal to die, like ammonia, okay, so the level is actually low. It works very well. So we can actually reduce the ammonia levels. Yeah, and then we look at the dissolved oxygen level. There's something you want it to be high, so it's high compared to control. So these are two key parameters. That is ammonia level shoot up? Answer is no. We can control that. Now, is the oxygen levels able to maintain as good as the control? Yeah, the starting point is about 9, and then after 24 hours we got 4.5. Okay, yeah, and then so for the 8 hours we got 2.3. So whatever that is, we can hold the oxygen levels in the water. Now, of course, here the oxygen level drop as it progresses, because these are live animals. They're active. We are not using temperature to cool them down, so they're still active, and so they consume oxygen and they excrete feces. Okay, they are just perfectly healthy, normal animals swimming in the back. Yeah, it's not like the stream. We put them to sleep without any temperature manipulation. So in this case, we can see that yes, indeed, we can improve the animals. So by looking into the water, you can see that the fine bubble water tends to be clearer. Okay, the turbidity reading is actually very good compared to control, right? So which means a lot of excreta present in the control water. Now, if you look at the mortality, obviously, control, you can see they start to die off. Okay, at 48 hours, control basically we less than 10%, about 10% of the survival. But in the fine bubble water animals, we're still able to maintain at 60%. So there's a 50% difference in terms, in terms of the survival percentage, yeah, compared to control. So that is very, very good result, that we can actually pack more animals, okay, and under these conditions without any aerations, okay. So because we actually put in the oxygen in the water, and then you pack the animal, tied it, and then leave it there for 48 hours and monitor the mortality. So after 48 hours, the fine bubble water is still able to have 60% of survival compared to control, which is about, slightly above 10%. And that show that it's possible now. And fine bubble generator indeed can support us in shipping live fish, but we need to see how to work and towards the harvest process. So what it's all about at the end of the day is for shipping of the live animals. To me, it's a logistic. Okay, so I will touch on what I need to say here, so that the later on when we talk about the shipping material, basically we will not have any presentation, just basically of the verbal exchange and see what can we work on it. So the key here will be the logistic, and logistic from the producer to the processing, from processing to the warehousing. Okay, and then the warehousing to another warehouse. It depends on how far you have to go, really central housing to smaller housing, and then to retail, and then to a consumer. So all these steps, we are talking about transportation. So it's all pure logistic. Now, to do that, you must have a proper way of shipping either live animals or fresh animals, so that the quality will not deteriorate by the time they reach the consumer. So I will introduce another technology that is surfaced now, is from Japan. It's very, very, actually, when I look at it, I was very happy to see that most probably we will bring them to Singapore, and we will try to translate it into the aquaculture space. So basically it's low voltage, okay, electrostatic field. So it's basically influencing the water molecules. You can see that by putting electrostatic fields, okay, and the water will start to vibrate. When it starts to vibrate, instead of cluster them together as one big clump of the water molecule, you break into individual molecules. Okay, and that is important, because when the water freezes, it forms crystal like this. Yeah, you can see that very nice flourish crystal. But when it's resonated under the electrostatic field, it becomes round shaped. So what it means is this type of the water molecule, when it's frozen, it will not disrupt the cell. We know that when you freeze the animals, okay, the meat, so the ice crystal form inside the cells. When it thawed, when you defrost the meat, it breaks, because when the ice start to form crystal, it expands in size. So it breaks the cell membrane. So when you start to thaw them or defreeze them, okay, and then before you cook them, so basically all the tissue damaged by the ice crystal. So you can see that in fish here, you can see the animal tends to be fresher on the right-hand side here, okay, because these are using the so-called LVEF water compared to the normal water that is causing the degenerations or degradations of the quality of the meat. So I just want to show you the other one, the experiment we did on the red meat, because this is only one we can show clear indication that is, this is a fresh meat. If you look under microscope, okay, it's very nice. You know, we have all these hemoglobins here. These are the muscle, and then you have fat. Now, when you freeze them, so-called basically usual freezer. This is just normal freezer. When you freeze them in normal freezer, the ice crystal will form. These are white colors are the ice crystal. So the huge ice crystal, they actually expand, okay, and then they force the muscle to one side. Now, when you thaw this meat, okay, all this part will be damaged, completely damaged. So when they damage, what happens? All the juice come up. That's why you see a lot of juice here. You see in this cup here on the left-hand side, control. So you see that after we deep freeze them for at minus 24 degrees Celsius for 7 days, and then you see that when you thaw them, all the juice come out, all the blood water comes up. Yeah. So these are we call it interstitial fluids, all comes up. Compared to the meat, if they are freeze under this electrostatic field, same thing. You lower the temperature to minus 24, but with the electrostatic fields, okay, the meat are like this, and the water crystal actually smaller. They don't damage the muscle. As a result, when you about to eat or fry the meat, you see very little water is lost. So the meat remain juicy. So this is what we are looking at now, is while we try to ship live seafood, while we try to do that task, can we ship fresh seafood? That is, you know, when you do the frozen process of the shrimp, for example, you know the freezing process will damage the meat. No matter what you do, it will damage it. Okay, you have fish burn outside, but inside is complete. Outside dry up, inside all damaged. Later on, when you cook, the shrimp become very chewy, very dry, you know, lose that kind of juiciness. So can we preserve the freshness of the frozen shrimp? That's the first cut. And with this technology coming in, I think we can. So which means we can move in multiple directions. That is ultimately live seafood, okay, ship all the way to the markets. That gives it a high price. But at the same time, while we're doing this, can we ship our seafood fresh or fresher, so that when the customer receives the produce, not as the farm just next door, they just harvest yesterday, today's on the table, yeah, without knowing this actually multiple days already and reaching you, because they will preserve using technology. So this is something that we are looking at, and we would like to share that with our colleagues in India with times to come. So basically, in summary, from the experience that we work with our colleagues in MPEDA and also our colleagues in various farms in Andhra Pradesh, we have these few bullets that we put up for sharing. That is, we need to have healthy animal, okay, and that is good, because by default, if you can ship live animals, is telling the customer your animals are healthy. Otherwise, they cannot go on through the stress of the transportations. Okay, so this animal, tends to be healthier. If not, they will not survive. So that is good indications on the quality. And then in the process of doing all this shipping, is the whole focus is how to minimize the stress to this animal. That's important. Yeah. So the stress, whether temperature stress, vibration stress, weight stress, okay, all these stresses, physical. Of course, we do not know the emotions of the animals, but I do think they have emotion as well. And also minimizing the injury. Yeah. So when they have injuries, they will have infections. So later on, when we revive them, and the bacteria will take control, and the animal will die prematurely. Now, of course, when you do all this, you make sure that you keep the animal moist, yeah, without increasing the cost, that is the weight, and oxygenate conditions, so the animal are able to have the oxygen as easier as possible without fighting to get the oxygen into the system. So fine bubble can play a very important part, because they're very fine. They can go to the tissue, and they can enrich the tissue with oxygen, allow the animals to have enough oxygen to last that kind of journey. And temperature will reduce the metabolism. Yeah, that's important. So we put animal to sleep, reducing that. Now, the last two bullets are very critical, which we haven't started on it, and that present huge opportunities beyond farming industry. So we hope our Indian colleagues can look into that. Is some of them in packaging material and can come in. So we need to redecide what we have today. Okay, all the boxes we have are for packing frozen seafood. They are not meant for live seafood. So we need to decide for live seafood. Yeah, and of course, the last word is about logistic. Because at the end of the day, is you can produce whatever we want, but if you cannot reach a customer, there's no way you can get your money back. Worse still, you might lose a lot because of the wastage. So that part is very critical. That's why I see aquaculture industry, we are bigger than aquaculture because we are very inclusive industry. We are actually bringing everybody from different industries coming to this space to contribute. Yeah, so our farmer friends here, you guys are actually a pioneer. You are the pioneer of this industry. You are creating opportunity for other businesses to come in to share this revenue that we created for them. So this is not very so-called isolated or exclusive. It's extremely, extremely inclusive that almost anybody can play a role in this. So if we do this right under the leadership of the government agency, I think the effect, the positive effect, the economic effect, I think is huge. It's far beyond food productions. It go beyond that because a lot of the industry were actually benefiting from this particular industry. With that, I thank you all of you for your time.
Thank you, Professor Lee. After this, we have two more presentations, but before we go on, can I again request all participants, if you have any questions, please put it down in the chat, and we'll take it at the end of the session, which will come up shortly. Thank you. Now, continuing on, could I invite MPEDA to please present on the technical and quality aspects of the live prawn transport? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohit. It's wonderful to listen to Professor Lee. He's as always, he's very bubbly with his nano bubble technology, and it's very interesting. The more you hear, the more interesting it becomes. And now he was introducing this low voltage freezing technique also, and we are getting questions on that already, which we will cover in our Q&A session. Now, very good afternoon to all colleagues from Singapore, and good afternoon to our colleagues in India, both exporters. I'm very glad to say that out of all the participants, we have more than 30 exporters registered, and we have farmers, we have representatives of shipping companies, we have hatchery operators, we have scientists from various research institutes like CIFT, CMFR, SIBA, who are participating in this program. So we are very glad. We are thankful to all the participants for coming and joining this workshop. And unfortunately, we couldn't register all the participants who are interested to participate because of the lack of space. But probably we may be, based on the requirement, we may conduct regional level workshops after this, based on the demand from the stakeholders. Now, coming back to our live shrimp transportation trials, Professor Lee has given a very good technical grounding for what we are going to present. In fact, how it originated from MPEDA side is one of our exporters from Mumbai, way back in 2014, said that there is a South Korean company, they are doing live shrimp export to USA using sea containers through sea, not by flight. So then there was some requirement for fresh shrimp for processing, live shrimp for processing into high-end sushi products. So we started that, and we couldn't succeed much. Then in 2018, the SIPO representative, Singapore-India Partnership Office representatives met us. I remember Professor Lee, Ms. Audrey and the entire team. We were discussing possibilities of collaboration, and one of the topics which emerged was, can we do live stream transportation. And Professor Lee immediately was saying about fine bubble and the nano bubble technology. And we had a very good discussion. Based on that, we initiated these field trials. What we are going to present here is the field trials which we have conducted in 3 different locations in Andhra Pradesh. We did one trial in a hatchery, Krishna Godavari hatchery in Prakasham district, targeting Chennai airport. And Nellore and Prakasham districts are closer to Chennai airport. Then we did in Ananda Seafoods Laboratory in Bhimavaram, targeting Vijayawada airport. And we did it with Continental Exports in Vizag. And their facility and farm is about 30 kilometers from the Vizag airport. Vizag, as you know, has a direct connectivity to Singapore. So as you can see, all this was done in close coordination with the exporters, farmers, and hatchery operators. Everybody was putting there. It was a Team India or Team Singapore India program. And the SIPO, very, I would say very gratefully, they have agreed to spare the fine bubble or nano bubble making machine, nano bubble generator for our experiment for about 3-4 months last year. And we were able to import it. One of our exporters came forward, Santhya Aqua from Vijayawada. He came forward and he imported and took care of all the logistics of importing it. And that is how we could do it. And when we did the experiments at the field level, what we tried to do here in the experiment field trial is, we won't even call it experiment, we will call it as field trials. We were trying to imitate a local conditions where a farmer and exporter will be facing. So we tried to do that in that condition to see whether it is viable or not. And we did with both nano bubble generator as well as without nano bubble generator, because it may not be feasible for in our field conditions to have nano bubble generator smoothly operating. Some power failures are there, other logistical issues are there. So we did that. So we are going to present 3 of my colleagues, Dr. Ganesh, Dr. Gopal Anand, and Mr. Arivi Karashu. All 3 are assistant directors in MPEDA. They were involved in the field level work, along with Dr. Williams of Temasek Polytechnic, TP we call in short form, from Singapore. They were, and Mr. Mohit also came to Andhra to conduct the trial. So all these 5 people were at the ground to conduct this field trials. Thanks to all of them. And we are going to present our field trial experience jointly. Now, after my introduction, Dr. Ganesh will give the basic details, followed by Dr. Gopal. He will give the rest of the presentation. And after that, I'm sure Professor Lee will give us some more tips on how we can improve our experience. Now, before I hand over to conclude and hand over to Dr. Ganesh, I'd like to say a couple of things also. This is not a ready-to-use technology, because why I'm saying this is we have standardized this technology based on the assumption that the shrimp should be alive without water for 12 hours. Now, why 12 hours? 12 hours means we are anticipating a pre-shipment transport for about 6 hours from the farm, then to the airport and checking in at the airport, doing the export procedures. So all that we put 6 hours, 4 hours for flight time, that is 10 hours, and another 1.5 hours to 2 hours for releasing the consignment in Singapore and transporting it to the supermarket. So that is how we have arrived at this 12 hours. Initially, we tried 15 hours. It was finding to be very difficult. We tried only with Vanamai shrimp, and we have also talked to through our SIPO colleagues, Singapore colleagues, talked to Singapore buyers, supermarkets, and right now what they are getting is they are getting live shrimp from Malaysia by road and by flight from other Southeast Asian countries. And what we could understand is the survival after receiving at Singapore is about 60% approximately for the live shrimp. And their requirement, the requirement of the importer or the supermarket is they want the shrimp on Saturday morning so that weekend sales, Saturday, Sunday sales can be carried out. And so minimum it has to be alive for 48 hours. So those shrimps which are dead, the price will be different. Price will be equivalent to that of chilled or fresh shrimp. So that is how they do the business. So we designed our field trials for 12 hours live transport, and instead of 48 hours, we took 72 hours just to see how long, what is the survival even at 72 hours. 3 days we did, and my colleagues will present. And this whole field trial was carried out because of our generous support and approval of our beloved chairman. And of course, Singapore team was fully with us. You have seen how they are supporting us. With these words, I would request Dr. Ganesh to start the presentation. Dr. Ganesh, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Anil sir, and our participants across the country, as well as our colleagues associated with us during the trials in Andhra Pradesh from Singapore. So just I will start with a small introduction. Here, this Singapore, China, and East Asian countries are having very good potential for live shrimp market or live fish market. Then this Singapore-India Partnership Office, Government of Singapore, and MPEDA decided to conduct a field-level trial for live shrimp transport in Andhra Pradesh. And coming to this potential, you can see that there is a comparison of this value of live animal and dead animal. We can see that shrimp is having generally around $27 to $30 in a live condition, but in the dead condition it will be around $18 to $20. So this potential we have to utilize. That is the basic for our trials. Then coming to this objectives, so transport the live shrimp without water or with the minimum water. Then as Anil sir explained, the duration of the transport, 6 hours, the pre-shipment duration, 4 hours transit, and 2 hours for clearing from cargo to the destination market. Then keep them for 72 hours. Generally 48 hours is sufficient for marketing, but even then another 24 hours also we tried. It was given a wonderful result that we will explain. Then explore the live shrimp export from India for Vietnam to Singapore. These are the 4 objectives of the trials. So these are the 3 supporters who supported us for conducting this experiment or the trials in Andhra Pradesh. As sir pointed out, from Prakasham district to Krishna Godavari hatchery, they are very near to Chennai. Bhimavaram, Ananda Foods. Then Visakhapatnam, Continental Marine. So they helped us a lot for conducting these trials, shared their infrastructure, shared their manpower to conduct these trials. And of course, this during this trial, 2 trials with this fine bubble machine, and the last trial without the fine bubble machine. So these are the basic material required for conducting the field trial. Just for information. So of course, the tanks 300 or 200 or 500 liter capacity for maintaining the animals or conditioning the animal. Then chillers. In our trials, we could not able to use chillers, so we used ice blocks for reducing the temperature to 15 to 16 degrees at the time of conditioning. Then oxygen cylinders for maintaining the animals. in an optimum oxygen level of around 6 ppm. Then water quality monitoring kits, ammonia, nitrate, then a pH meter, salinofractometer, rheometer, then a weighing scale for weighing the animals, then thermocol boxes, packing tapes, then ice bags, then a carry bag or a seat packing bag or bushwhack bag for packing the animals and keeping in the styrofoam box. Then of course the media as for holding the water or moist condition inside the box. Here we used cotton, then tissue paper, sponge, then filter bag. Several media we tried during the trials. And of course normal aeration system, air blower. That are the these are the major 11 components required to conduct a study. These are the flow chart. First thing is harvest from the farm, then transportation. In our first trial, we harvested the product from around 90 kilometers away. It was a long duration transport. And there will be, as pointed out in the previous presenter, during transportation, if it is more long duration, there will be stress will be there. It will surely affect the further processing also. Further processing means the conditioning, packing, then the survival, everything will be affected if the duration is more, transport duration is more. Then after reaching the conditioning area, we have to condition the animal. Conditioning means we have to reduce the temperature. First, the animal, if it is in a normal condition, then we have to reduce the temperature to 15 to 16 degrees centigrade. It will take 2 hours for reducing the temperature. Next is the packing. So we have to pack. Anyway, that it will be described in detail in the coming slides. After packing, the simulation of the transport. That is 12 hours. So we done 2-3 trials we have done. First we packed and kept inside a AC room. Then we packed and kept inside a moving vehicle to study the effect of both the stagnant nature as well as the moving nature, whether it is increasing box, etc. We have tried. Then after reaching or after 12 hours, we have to recondition. We have to open. We have to take out the animal or transfer the animal to a conditioning or a reconditioning tank. We have to spray water. We have to see how much survival is there. Then we will maintain the animal for 72 hours. Initially, 1 or 2 days, some mortality will be there. And there also we tried, with feeding and without feeding also we tried whether that is affecting the survival. But if we can provide the best water quality or the better water quality by giving a water exchange or by providing some RI system or some ammonia reducing or oxygen, if you are providing sufficient oxygen, we will get a good survival. Then if the conditioning, if you are doing in a same salinity, that means if the pond water is having a 27 or 30 ppt, and as we discussed, the fine bubble machine will be operating, or the conditioning area, the water salinity will be 0 ppt. Now, we are discussing about the salinity. If the pond water is higher salinity and if the conditioning tank or the conditioning water salinity is low, means the salinity fluctuation will be more. So animal will be under stress. So such a situation we have to avoid. And if you can condition the animal in the same pond water salinity, means it will be far better. So this is the initial introduction, and now I think that our colleague Dr. Gopal Anand can continue with the conditioning and other procedure. Dr. Gopal.
Thank you very much, sir. Honorable Chairman, Director, sir, and all my higher officials, support team, and MPEDA team, and all the stakeholders. I thank for this privilege to take you forward from the process that we have conducted here. I'll quickly walk you through all these slides with the presentations of how we have taken up this trial. Coming to the conditioning part, it involves like Professor Lee was telling, it's a pseudo hibernation process that we do in the conditioning part, where the temperatures are lowered from 30 degrees Celsius. It is slowly brought down to 15 degrees Celsius within a span of 2 hours. And before that, the water is treated with nanobubble aerator. So these are fine bubbles which are less than 200 nanometer size, which is held within the water, and that actually helps the animal to survive for a little longer without water. That is what is felt from the nanobubble aerator. And during the conditioning, the points like water quality, the pond water, and the salinity were some of the important aspects that we have to look into and we have to take utmost care upon. And the like Professor Lee was telling, handling of the animal, there could be a lot of stress that is caused to the animal while handling. So that handling, to avoid the handling stress on the animal needs to be handled very carefully. Like my colleague Dr. Ganesh was mentioning, we have tried in different methods like harvesting method, so which we will get into details in the coming slides. So in the conditioning process, you can see the slides here. Towards my left, we had a conditioning tank in between, which is a 2-ton tank in which the animal was initially brought. It was kept in the tank for about 12 hours. This actually was a starvation period which the animal had to go through. Whatever the feed that was there in the gut, all it came out during this conditioning process. And the tanks that you see on the left hand side, the blue tanks, these are each 1-ton tanks, which were actually bubbled and aerated with nanobubble aerator. On the left hand side, one of the tanks is a control and the other one was aerated with nanobubbles. And in our trial, what we have understood is that if we can bypass this long duration of conditioning, the survival rates have gone up, and that has increased the survival. So this is how the nanobubble aeration is done in the 1-ton tanks that you see on the left. That is the nanobubble aerator, which was a courtesy of CIPO team and our colleagues in India who were able to bring it here, and we could use it for the successful completion of the trial at Anand. So this fine bubble is, like I said, it is less than 200 nanometer size, and this gets easily mixed up with the water. And by this mixing, the oxygen levels in the tank rose up to 8 ppm. So the 8 ppm dissolved oxygen levels are good for the survival of the animal. And like it was discussed in the earlier slides, this machine, the aerator, would not be compatible with higher salinity. So the salinities have to be lesser than 5 ppt. So that's the reason why after 2 hours of aeration in the tank, that has to be removed and backwashed. So during the time, the animal is from the conditioning tank is introduced into the nanobubble aerated water. And while the condition is going on, like while the animal is put inside the water, in the nanobubble aerated water, we went ahead because the chillers were not available. We had opted for this ice bags. So we have filled the ice in the poly bags and we have kept it in the condition, nanobubbled water here. You can see how it is being done. So from the initial temperatures of 30 degrees Celsius, slowly we reduce the temperature to 15 degrees Celsius. And this is not done all of a sudden, because it causes additional stress on the animal. So within the duration of 2 hours, slowly the temperature is reduced and it is brought to 15 degrees Celsius. So once the temperature reaches 15 degrees Celsius, you have seen in the previous slide that there are the animals are in pseudo hibernation. So there were 2 methods that we have applied here. The first method is with using the nanobubble or fine bubble aerator, and the second method was without the fine bubble aerator. So these are the steps that we have done. The fine bubbling was done for 2 hours, and the dissolved oxygen levels have gone up to 8 ppm in the empty tank. And the fine bubble water was introduced with the animal for about 12 hours, and the temperatures were reduced after the 10 to 12 hours duration. And it was packed, and the packed animal was kept for 12 hours duration, like our joint director sir said mentioned. So 6 hours plus 4 hours plus 2 hours is the criteria that we have looked upon. So without the fine bubble, what we have tried to do is we have simulated the moment. We have brought the animal from the pond. It was in the vehicle in a tank with pure oxygen being pumped in. and the vehicle was kept on running for a certain period of time, 3 to 4 hours, after which the animal was removed from the tank. It was put into the conditioning tank for 2 hours. We have reduced the temperature, then we have packed the animal, and it was kept for 12 hours for checking the survival and the condition of the animal for reconditioning. So while the process is going on, we went ahead and made arrangements for packing. This is how the packing boxes were ready. These boxes that you see in the picture are the 1 kg boxes. We had made some perforations in the boxes. This was done to allow the passage of oxygen inside the box. These boxes are kept inside a poly bag and they are sealed from outside. So there will be a movement of the oxygen within the bag inside this styrofoam boxes. Hence, we had to make these perforations in the boxes. So after making the perforations, the next step what we have done was we had gone ahead and made a groove inside the thermocol box. You can see on the left hand side, there is a groove that is made. Into this groove, a small layer or thin layer of styrofoam is fixed in. This is fixed to keep the gel packs that you see on the right side in this partition that block. This would actually have help in maintaining the temperature inside the box. Once it is sealed, to maintain the temperature inside the box, the gel pack is kept inside. To avoid a direct contact with the animal, the gel pack getting contact with the animal or animal during the struggling, just in case if it touches, so it should not cause additional damage to the animal. That's the reason why we put a thin film of styrofoam box inside the groove that we have made in the box. All right. After making this groove and after keeping all this, we put a layer of cotton, 2 centimeter layer of cotton is put inside. You can see in the image on which the animal is layered. So on the image in the right hand side, you can see that the gel pack is folded in a newspaper to control the moisture, whatever it is absorbed, and that is placed inside the groove. So the animal is kept on the right hand side and it is sealed. And this cotton is sprinkled with moist water, chilled water. This is not completely soaked, they just sprinkle with a little bit of water to retain the moist inside. So after all this is done, you can see the boxes that are ready for packing on the left hand side, and the boxes that you see on the right hand side are the boxes in which we have released the animal for reconditioning after the packing was done and once the unboxing was done, rather unpacking. And these boxes are for 15 to 20 liters capacity. So after the animal is conditioned and once we have made the animal or taken it through the pseudo hibernation process, this is the condition of the animal. You can see a 500-liter tanks on the left hand side. So where the animal is in pseudo hibernation. So there is a slight movement. So you can see that the animal is moving, but it will not die and it is not completely stretched. So we gently, technically handle the animal and take it and put it inside the styrofoam box in a layer form. So you can see the layers that are there. So this is how the animals are layered. In this particular experiment or the particular trial, we have taken 1 kg box in which there is a 30 count animal. And because the temperature is reduced and the temperatures are maintained inside the box constantly. And these are layered, stacked upon like in a layer, and they are put inside the box. And you can see on the right hand side that the box is sealed after putting a temperature probe inside. So this is how the box will look after the complete sealing. These are the dimensions of the box that you see at the left at the bottom. So these were square type boxes that we've used, and we have tried to pack 1 kg animal inside each of the boxes. And after the sealing is done, on the right hand side, you can see that the box is kept inside a poly bag, and the poly bag is filled with pure oxygen, and it's sealed. You can see a video of how the process is being carried out here. So that 30 degrees Celsius is the initial temperatures. So the temperature slowly comes down. It reduces because the animal was taken out and it is being sealed outside. The temperatures looks like this, but once it is sealed and kept inside, this temperature lowers down to 15 degrees Celsius. utmost care has to be taken while packing, while handling the animal, and while sealing the boxes. We should make sure that the oxygen is filled properly and it is retained for the complete duration of the cycle. So the boxes that you see in this image here, these two boxes of the dimension 27 into 15 would fit into one single big carton of 60 liters. Okay, and this will be coming up to a weight of 6.5 kilograms, approximately a gross weight. And like our joint director sir was telling, the packed boxes are kept for 12 hours. This is in consideration of the 6 hours of the local transport, packing, cargo, check-in, and the flight duration of 4 hours 10 minutes to Singapore from Vizag, and 2 hours duration from there for the parcel to reach the destination, the warehouse. All right. The second method that we have applied, I was mentioning in the earlier slides, we have used the poly bags. The bags that you see in the image are the broodstock bags. So these broodstock bags have a flat bottom, which would actually help us to layer the cotton and place the animal in a layer on top of the cotton. So each broodstock bag we have kept around 1 kg of the animal, which was 40 count, and this was laid upon a 2 centimeter cotton. And the gel packs were kept on the sides of the bag inside the styrofoam box, and in one the total weight of the master carton was coming to around 7 kg gross weight. And this this would be an excellent option for domestic transport, which we have tried, and for the international transport as well, I believe. So after the 12 hours duration is over, we have checked the temperatures inside the boxes as well. The the temperature probes have showed us the temperature of 22 to 26 degrees Celsius. So based on this temperature, the conditioning water temperature is also raised or decreased, into which the animal will be released. So here you can see Mr. William unboxing the packed boxes in Anand, where we have conducted the second trial. And just to make a point here, you can see that the cargo in a flight, the baggage area will be having a temperature of around 7 degrees Celsius, and the bulk area where the animals are kept, the temperatures are maintained around 18 degrees Celsius temperature. So in an international transit, so the exporters might look at the option of going for the baggage area where the temperatures are maintained. Like Professor Lee was telling, that the temperatures have to be maintained through the transit period. All right, after the unboxing is done, you can see the animals on the left. This is how the animals will look after the unboxing. And like I said, after checking all the temperatures and the parameters in the water on the right hand side, the animal is slowly released into this water. And after this, the animal will be provided with sufficient oxygen and all the other things, so that the animal is revived and it survives for 72 hours. So we will be continuously monitoring the animal once it is released to the into the water at the destination. So any dead animals, just in case if there are any dead animals which could not withstand the stress, they will be removed while the continuous monitoring process is done. So here you can see the condition of the animals after we have conducted the experiment, and how the animal looks after this duration of 72 hours. So like I said, and like our joint director sir has mentioned, we have conducted 3 trials, and each of those trial was a learning process for us. In the first trial, we had logistic issues, and there were power outages. And in this last trial that we have done, we had an issue with the aerator where we were falling short of an aeration problems and all. And the second trial that we have conducted in Anand Foods Laboratory, Covada, it was an excellent experiment that we believe. If you can see the survival rates on the right hand side, so the table clearly mentions how much survival we have received after 12 hours, after 24 hours, 48 hours, and 72 hours. So considering the duration of, like in Singapore, the Saturdays and Sundays market, 48 hours durations, we were able to successfully achieve 77% of survival, which I believe is way beyond the survival that they're getting from Vietnamese colleagues or Thailand colleagues. So live shrimp export from India would definitely prove very beneficial, looking at the survival rates that we were able to achieve at a 33 count 1 kg animal per box. So the key learnings that we had from the field trials was survival greatly depended on the way the animal was harvested. So like we have discussed earlier, the cast netting method, the drag netting method, and the lip net method. Uh, so the cast netting method, the animal was stressed because when it was being caught from the pond, the animal was stressed, or the handling has, there was greater extent of handling. And drag net method, in the second trial, we have used both cast netting and drag netting. So you can see in the results from Ananda that both the drag netting has proved to be very beneficial. And we believe that lift net would be more beneficial, where the animal will have minimal stress of handling, and it will be slowly brought and kept in the conditioning tank, and it will get a better survival. So during the harvesting time, one major thing that we have to concentrate or look into is avoid the lunar period. Because the lunar period, the animal would go for molting and all, so that would actually cause additional stress on the animal, and that might in turn reduce the survival. The other two aspects that we have to look into is the dissolved oxygen levels and the water quality. Like we have discussed earlier, give best results that is what we have seen through the trials. And the last trial, we did the trial with the pond water, and we have noticed and observed that once the pond water is filtered properly, and if it is used for conditioning, then we can achieve better survivals and higher survival rates as well. So from all this, the way forward that we look about the live prawn trials is the number of shrimps per bag can be more than the double. We can double it by stacking the animal in a layered form. Like Professor Lee was telling about, looking at innovation and options. We can actually go ahead and we can stack the animal. For example, in this poly bags that we have packed a layer of animal, 40 count, and on top of that, we can put another layer, and likewise, we can try up to 2 to 3 kg per bag. In this trials, we have transported 2 kg bag, 2 kg animal, so we can go for about 5 to 6 kg, which will be more beneficial for the exporters. And the field trials for transportation of 5 tons shrimp from the pond to the processing area would actually help in getting better head-on freezing and better cooking quality material. And live shrimp transport for domestic market is having immense potential, and if this process is standardized, it would be more beneficial for all the stakeholders. And trials for food fish and ornamental fish with increased density can be tried with or without minimal water as well. And the possibility of using oxygen tablets, like oxygen release agents and oxygen tablets, would be more beneficial, we believe, and it has to be explored. The options have to be explored a little further. So these are some of the examples, like I was telling, stacking the animal in layers, so one top of the other. So if we can go for a customized molding, then we can fit the box one top of another without stressing the animal or without causing any damage to the animal, and we can put it inside the bag and pack it, and maybe we can go for higher quantities with this packing, and you can also use the oxygen tablets, but the options have to be explored if you want to go for higher quantities. And coming to the costing, how the costing is done, this is just an indicative costing, how the trials have conducted and what are the costing it will be coming to. Approximately for transportation of 1 kg of live prawns from India to Singapore would be approximately coming to US $15 per kilogram. So these are the individual parameters that we have looked into while costing was done. Styrofoam boxes, broodstock packing bags, gel packs. It need not necessarily be broodstock packing bag, but like in the first method that we have tried, it is a thermocol styrofoam box inside a poly bag. So we have gel packs cost, outer tape polythene, freight charges, oxygen, cotton rolls, labor, raw material, insurance. These are some of the major parameters that we have looked into while the costing was done. So this could be a variable. However, we have concluded, or we were able to estimate that 1 kg would be costing approximately around $15 US. So all this could not be possible. All this would not have come into reality without all the extensive support that we have received from our chairman sir and all our staff and all our higher officials. Along with them, we acknowledge the cooperation and assistance received from Sandhya Aqua Exporters, Krishna Godavari Hatchery, where we have conducted the first trial, Ananda Foods Laboratory, where we have conducted the second trial, Continental Marines, where we have conducted the third trials, and the field trial teams from SIPO and MPEDA. I thank all our higher officials and my colleagues who have been a part of this trial program and who have been successfully put in their best efforts to make this come alive. I sincerely thank once again for your time, and I hand over the program, the presentation to Anil Kumar sir, who will be taking it further from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ganesh and Dr. Gopal. I request Mr. Mohit to take us to the next presentation. Thereafter, we will go to the Q&A and we will add more points. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Anil. First off, I'd just like to say I think that was a very thorough presentation. Excellent, very well done. I think at this point, I'd like to invite Professor Lee to share his remarks and his suggestions on perhaps how we could improve the packing protocols for the shrimp trials and transportation.
Thanks, Anil. I'm really, really glad to see Dr. Ganesh and Dr. Gopal for their presentation. Excellent. In fact, of course, Anil, you're the leader, okay? So leader, we don't acknowledge. Sorry, it's all. So I think you guys got a lot of the so-called insights, understanding of the whole thing. I really love the whole exercise you guys did, and able to pick it up and move on to the next stage. How should we go about? So basically, I think most of the audience will feel that it's not that difficult. You know what I mean? It is possible. It's just a process. Every farm is different. Every farm have the pain points. So which means how can we address the pain point in your farm, and how can we reduce the stress for your animals in terms of harvesting, how you harvest it, how you deliver it, how you pack it, you know, how you feed them, and how's the water conditions. So these are individual things. So, but in general, you know, we know it's okay, it's possible. So what is critical is Dr. Gopal mentioned in his last slides on the economic value. So the cost, you got $15 per kg for the strip that ship alive. So that's USD, I believe. So because of that pricing, of course, the first thing is it not viable. You cannot compete. Agree. So if you're going to sell your tiny stream at $15 US dollars per kg, you cannot compete in that sense, because just the price difference between the frozen one and the live one is too huge. But I always stress on is we shouldn't compete with prices, because if you go into a products, they always compete with the cheapest price. Eventually, nobody making money, so everybody will suffer. I would prefer we go for unique big prawns. Let's say for 100 gram and above, because when you go above 100 gram or 200 gram, that kind of prawns, of course, one can say that the culture period will be longer. It's going to be higher risk. I agree with that. You know, so as you hold the animal for a longer period, it tends to expose yourself to a high risk. And so that is the thing. A lot of farmers say, I don't want it. I want to keep the animal for 4 months and let them go as whatever size that is. So to hold it for 8 months, sorry, man, the risk is too high. That is old way of farming, which you cannot mitigate your risk. But moving forward, if provide proper financial support from the government in that sense, that we can have a really biosecure boutique farms in India, because most of the shrimp farmers are quite small anyway. So for that, the cost of really fit the whole thing up as a biosecure farm, produce unique type of food for international market, I think is possible. So in Singapore, I know there's a wet market in Singapore where they sell 400 gram prawn or shrimps, okay, the size of my hand, okay. The animal comes in at 5 a.m., okay, and finish at 7 a.m. That's all. And the owner couldn't be bothered because there's limited supplies that they can have. And he charged $40, $50 a kg, okay? And to me, it's very, very reasonable price, right? But that is the pricing we should go for. We'll go for higher quality because it's good quality shrimp to begin with, because as I discussed earlier on, healthy animals survive the journey. So your quality of animals is higher already. So which means they are good animals. So if that's the case, why not fetch higher price, and the consumer based on high price on the live animal versus the size as well. So you have the size, big size, and a live, that your $15 per kg justified, because the weight is still $15, right? So it's still $15 per kg based on the weight. But instead of selling at $15 market price, I can sell $35 or $50 market price. That's the very different pricing already. So from economic points of view, I think first cut as we move into exporting live animals, we should go for niche market that people prepare to pay good price for big animals, live one. Okay, this is actually very high price. The one that's selling at $35, $40, $50 a kg, they are fresh prawn, they are not live prawn. Okay, so these are so imagine if this guy is selling live animals, I think the price will be very, very different. So we can look into how to positioning it, what species to ship live, and the size of it. Okay, so these are the things. And then we focus on certain market. And until the cost of technology drops, so in terms of packaging material advancement, more size come into play, that we can lower the cost, increase the productivity, then we can start reducing the size of the animals in that sense. Yeah, so this is how the technology curve usually is. It starts with very high price, but you need to start generating revenue to sustain the development. You cannot wait for the price to drop, the technology price to drop before you embark, because if nobody start, nothing will improve. The price always stay high for technology. But we know once you start to using technology, the cost of technology will drop. Okay, the more we use, the rapid it drops. Now, so if India can champion this, so that will be your niche area. You can really conquer the world, that you can ship live animals. So to begin with, we start with big animals that fetch very high price, only serving 1% of the populations, wherever they are. Doesn't really matter. I'm not going to serve the mass market. Of course, some other farm will still produce a normal size stream that is for frozen, for mass market. By all means, this one carry on. But for live one, that's we can have farms that qualify to do that kind of farming. In other words, it's biosecure farm, have a proper farming protocol, follow the GAP standards, that animal can actually able to keep for this size, because you know it's safe to grow the animal for that long. And then you ship live and fetch premium for that kind of products. So we go for different positioning, entire different positioning. And then, of course, we talk about the packaging material need to improve. So Dr. Gopal showed the trays. Yeah, fantastic. So once you go to molding and injector mold, produce special trays that can hold the wet towel or whatever material that keep the humidity. Okay, can hold the oxygen tablet that can keep the oxygen. So without having the blown oxygen, which is not really pure oxygen. Why? Because you have existing air, which is not a pure oxygen. Then you blow it in, so it's a dilution inside. So we can have tablets, whatever not that is, constantly producing oxygen from it, just like the dry ice. But sending dry ice, so-called the kind of thing, dry oxygen is not possible for the plane. The cost will be very high. So I think of something that is safe to travel on air. There's one thing we're looking at. Yeah, and a special tray or that doesn't compress on the bottom animals. So each animal is actually not pressed. Right, and each animal have their own cooling pads, because the animal that close to the current the gel pack area where we have compartment tends to be colder because there's a temperature gradient. So this part of animals tends to be either have higher survival rate because any temperature is cool, they sleep, or too cold, they die. So either way, that's an issue, you see. So how you even distribute temperature within the box, that is something that all depends on the designing of that trays that can provide the oxygens for that trays, humidity for that trays, and also avoid compressions on the animals. Yeah. So once you have that, then you can big box already, a huge box that will really lower down the cost of shipping. Because right now it's based on what we have. Okay, then it's basically, of course, we know it's very challenging. You know, that's why I see when I look at our colleagues try to implement this extra on site. Okay. With whatever they can find. So it's a challenging task, and also facing a lot unknown. That I remember, yes, power failure, there's no power, and then animal health affected. So these are all the issue, you know, the team gone through. So I believe once we've gone through this, understand the pain points, have a proper SOP, think carefully, identify the position, which animal to ship, the one that gives us the highest value. Then we start with that first to lower the cost of technology. Then later on we start to ship smaller or lighter animals because the cost is low. So basically you can capture. And then the precision of India aquaculture will be completely different platform. Yeah. So that is a quick so-called what I got from the presentations, and I always get excited with technology, how technology can support our farming community, and always believe it can be done. It really can be done. So with that, I'm handing the mic over to Mohit, so we can go to Q&A sessions. Will be better.
Right. Thanks, Prof. Lee. Moving on, Mr. Anil, would you like to kick off the Q&A session?
Yes, thank you, Mohit, and thank you, Professor Lee, for giving us these, tips, very useful tips. And we have received more than a dozen questions, and most of it we will answer. And the first question is on two questions. I will place it together and put it to you, Professor Lee. The first question is, which species is most ideal for live? Which fish species is most ideal for live transportation? That is one question. And there is one question on what is that low voltage electric freezing. Can you explain a bit more about that technology? These are the two questions to you, Professor.
Okay. I think for the species, basically, honestly, nobody actually looking into that yet, because shipping live animals somehow hasn't clicked yet. Hasn't clicked yet. So we took it for granted that lobster, prawn, okay, lobster, crabs, these are the things can survive live without water, right? So these are the standards. Fish always somehow must have water. Prawn, frozen, settled with that. So we really haven't go to that sphere in actual sense. So that's why I see there's opportunity. Now, put that aside. If we're going to pick on what species, for example, then we look from the consumer market. For example, just now, I think maybe Dr. Ganesh slide or Dr. Gopal slide, I can't remember which one. You talk about the price of the frozen. I think, or maybe Anil, your slide, or on the price of the frozen, right? One of the slide, frozen versus live, the difference in that. Now, if you look at that slide, it means a lot. There's one thing, okay, that I think is not that right. It's the first one on grouper. The grouper in Asia, this part of the world, we want it live fished. Dead grouper basically very low value. But that slide show not much difference in terms of the grouper price. But in Chinese market, okay, that animals grouper, the eater prefer to buy fresh, live. Does it not fresh, live? So live grouper very high priced. Okay, the dead one nobody eats actually. The price is very low. So these are the species we go for live, right? Because we can see a difference in terms of live and fresh priced in that sense. So that it could be one start by looking at the consumer, okay, where when they eat live seafood, usually prefer certain species, and the dead one is usually very low price. So that will be the one we want to ship. Now, that's why I say for the grouper, in Singapore, we have a lot of farm growing that because high value fish, but they can't sell it overseas, mainly for local consumption, right? Because when they want to sell overseas, they have to freeze them up as a frozen seafood. That value dropped. So to them, they said, don't bother. They basically produce enough for local consumption. So most of the Asia country, for example, when they have the farm, they produce grouper actually for local consumption. They don't plan to ship out of it because the value dropped tremendously. Because if you take the fish and steam it and eat, you can see the difference in texture. Right? Partly is because of the next question, that is what's a low voltage electrostatic field. Because of the usual freezing, the ice crystal form inside the muscle. And then when you thaw it, okay, it breaks the tissue. So it become very soggy, very soft, and become very poor value. So that's why we prefer fresh, that is without freezing. So you catch the animal, put on ice, but not freezing the animals, and then you cook it. That is very fresh. You can see the texture is very, very different. So all this texture difference is because once a cell, the muscle or the cell individual cell damaged by the ice crystal, all the enzyme release out. So the enzyme release out, these are proteases, so which means they try to digest the protein. Okay, all the ligament will be affected. That's why the quality of the meat drops. When you freeze it and you thaw it again, and then the whole quality change. You can see all the water comes up when you start to fry them or whatever that is. A lot more water than fresh animals when you just cook it, okay? Because all the water still retained in the meat. So that's why we are looking into this technology. Again, it's from Japan. Very interesting. They have a lot of exciting technology, but they use it for different purpose. So for us, we say, look, if that's the case, I'll look into the fresh and seafood, not just red meat, vegetable as well. So these are technology we can start with our aquaculture community. For example, we popularize this technology. Then eventually this technology can propagate out of the aquaculture industry to support other industry, food production industry. So somebody got to champion it. And I believe if under MPEDA, good leadership, if we can champion this, so we move beyond just producing protein, we also talk about technology advancement, okay, in supporting the protein production system, which eventually technology costs drop, it can be deployed or utilized by other industry so that you can propagate it out from here. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Lee. And we have, I think, more than half a dozen questions we have already answered. These questions were put forth at the beginning of the session. During the session, I think you must have got, whoever has asked that question must have got the answers. So, for example, one question is fine bubble packing can be effective for waterless packaging? You have seen in the presentation. Is it possible to transport shrimp without water? That we have shown already. So we are not going to answer that question. So let me come to some very, towards the later part of our presentation, some questions has come. And what I would say about these questions is these are very relevant questions. One question is survival rate higher without fine bubble? The slide indicates so. What is the reason?
Okay, for the stream, okay, from our experiment, at first our hypothesis was that the fine bubble should improve the survival rate. But in the experiment, we find that the fine bubble doesn't benefit in that sense, okay? So we don't get a better survivor with or without fine bubbles. Okay, so basically they're about the same, yeah? So the preconditioning of the animal, okay, with fine bubble, it doesn't improve the survival rate of the animal during that 12 hours of shipment. Right? At first, we thought we might see some difference. That's why we brought that equipment in and to do the experiment. Okay, but even though it doesn't improve that 12 hours of shipping by precondition them in fine bubble water, but we discovered that if you precondition them with fine bubble, the animals tend to have better survival in the journey, but because you don't have to hold them for too long. So that is improving their, in other words, it condition them better in a shorter period of time with the fine bubble. That's one thing. So that could be something we have to look at. May not helping you the actual one, but they actually cut down your precondition period by bringing up the survival of this animal before you select them for shipping. Yeah, because they have more oxygen, things like that. So you don't have to stop them for too long because they actually stress them, you weaken them by not feeding them. Now, another aspect of it is it may not work that well. Doesn't mean the fiber is no good. It could be the generator, because that generator, that particular brand, iDeck, okay, from Japan, that one is actually good for fresh water. But when you go to seawater with high salinity, the fine bubble not stable. That's why when we told the inventor, say, look, your fine bubble got limitation. It may be good for agriculture, may be good for cleaning, for sanitation, but it may not be suitable for seawater aquaculture purpose, because the fine bubble shelf life is very short in the presence of the salt. Okay, it's a Zion effect. There's a science behind that, you see. So we are looking into other generators because the different technologies develop the fine bubble. So there's one technology coming from Korea, and also because when we set the standard, we actually assess all the equipment and see which one is more suitable for what. Okay, and we find that this Korean one could be suitable because they are actually designed for sea. They use it to clean the sea. Okay, Because fine bubble, they can clean the sea, they use it to clean the oyster, to all these things. See? So they are designed for seawater with high PPT. And because of that, I think that technology or that generator could be suitable for our purpose. So that's why I say when we start to go into the serious designing our SOP for shipping, let's say stream again, okay, when I make out, then we have to bring back all the experiences we have so far till today, and then restructure it and say, okay, what are the issues? Okay, we're going to do it this way. So I believe the few thing that is the equipment itself could be a limitation, because that generator is actually eventually we show to them not good enough for seawater, very good for fresh water, but they still have the property of killing the bacteria. So which means we still want to incorporate fine bubble into the so-called preconditioning. Yeah, but how to do it in terms of the cost, very important, because the machine takes a cost and not all farm can afford it. So because the fine bubble in the water actually kill the bacteria. So by having animals soak in that, you're actually sanitizing the animals. So animals are clean with water, bacteria. So that could be another application that when we start to ship live animal into other country, the regulator may look at the pathogen. Okay, are you bringing in disease or not? Have you cleaned the animals or not? Okay, so that process is actually cleaning effects. We have to clean the animals. So certain species of animal, when they cross, be subject to a lot of regulatory control because of pathogen they carry. So having process or condition through fine bubble can reduce that. That is one plus. Okay, so which means you open up a lot of opportunity for us. Depends on the species, depends on the market, right? And then this thing, we can actually use it to enhance our profitability or accessibility to the market. So there are other opportunities because of that. So we can see fine bubble sanitation, very powerful, able to hold the dissolved oxygen for days. I got one equipment, one generator, they showed that for months. So once you pump in oxygen, fine bubble, okay, so your fine bubble producing bubble, but it's using pure oxygen, not from the air, it's pure oxygen. And you can see the oxygen, actually the DO level is very high at eggs, value of egg, and stay for months if there's no consumption, okay? Of course, when you put more animals, you will consume the oxygen and start to drop in that sense. So it's very powerful. So the shelf life of the bubble in the water can last for months. That is beautiful. Yeah, so that's one plus of fine bubble, that it kills bacteria, it can hold oxygen levels in the water for months without bursting away, right? And hopefully, together with the low voltage electrostatics fuel compressed, come together, we force the water molecules to open it up, instead of cluster together, then they can actually carry more oxygen. You know what I mean? Because clusters together actually not able to hold more, but breaking it up can actually hold more oxygen. So these are the, again, multiply effect. You put two together, you have synergistic things that might happen. So in Singapore, that's what position we are holding is, we want to position Singapore as an innovation hub, and because we can access a lot of technologies, right, from Japan, Korea, whatever country, doesn't matter, and we have a lot of scientists who like to develop. Then once we develop this, we learn to translate it out. That's why SIPO is actually very kind that why not we work with Indian counterparts, that whatever we have, we share. It doesn't really matter, yeah, because we are such a small little country, we are no threat to anybody. But all these beautiful technologies should be utilized properly. So we want to have a position of how to translate them, okay? From the scientific aspect of it, that is a functionality, and then to the economic value, that is, it must be affordable. We cannot have something that is not affordable. At the same time, it must be ease of adoption. So because whatever technology, when we give to the farmers, it must be able to adopt easily. We cannot give them something so complicated and nobody can able to comply the SOP, and then it defeats the purpose. So we always look at, yes, it has to be good. Yes, it has to be affordable, but the next is it easy to adopt or not? If it's not easy, don't bother. Let's make it easy. That's why this is our so-called tree strategy in looking for technology, bring them down, make it easy to use and affordable as well. Yeah, and then we propagate it. But of course, the challenge right now is the cost is always high at the beginning. But we cannot wait for them to drop if there's no usage. So that's why we want to encourage usage. Let's use first. It will drop. If nobody uses it, forever it will stay up there. And all the problem would never solve because nobody use it and we would not be discovered those kind of issues. So we want to use it, discover, and these are intellectual property. The moment you have new information, this become Indian intellectual property because you have the insight how to use this technology, let's say from Japan, okay, and how to translate to aquaculture, and at the same time, you create intellectual property because you understand how to deploy it and create a unique SOP, and that is an asset. Yeah, so that is a position we'd like to work together, you know, with MPEDA.
Thank you, Professor Lee. I would like to add to Professor Lee's explanation on this question that indeed this we got better survival without nanobubble or fine bubble machine, and the reason Professor Lee has already explained. And we were, as he was saying, that it is most adapted for freshwater, and we had to do a lot of cleaning activities because we are using low saline water. So that also hampered our use of fine bubble machine. And we also looked at the possibility of a cost factor. The cost is very high. So we need to bring down the cost also. So then we tried parallelly the without fine bubble also. And as Professor Lee said, the future is in the technology, and the nano bubble or fine bubble technology offers a very good scope in the future. Professor Lee, one more question for you. This is from one of our farmers, a leading farmer. He is asking, but from Bangkok to China on a daily basis, about 15 metric ton of shrimp is being exported according to the questionnaire. So is it using the same technology? The 15 metric ton of shrimp is exported via flight from Bangkok to China in a live condition. Are they using the technology? Can you explain something about this? This is the question.
Yeah. So basically, we did ask a lot of the importer, okay, in terms of the live stream when they buy from Vietnam, especially they export quite a lot of live stream, and also from Thailand. So basically, the survival rate is good within the first 24 hours. But after that, that's it, all the way down. Okay, so basically, they only good for the first day. That's about it. And they, to them, that's okay. They don't care because that's how they sell it. Okay, and we believe that is not right because it has to be survived at least 48 hours. That's why we set the highest stringency into 72 hours. You know, because MPEDA, you guys set a very high stringent criteria. They have to survive past 3 days. That is the conditions. But we check with all the importer, even from China, they are basically not able to survive longer than that. Yeah, unless they choose a different species of shrimp like Burama that may be able to solve it. So there are certain species can survive that, and also the distance is a bit closer, so maybe easier, and also logistic is more frequent. So they cut short a lot of the pre-shipment and post-shipment, that kind of time in that sense. But we, in general, we find that if indeed they can ship live stream very successfully, why aren't they have live stream selling in supermarket? Right? So most of live stream selling in supermarket are actually local producer. We haven't seen this real importing live stream. We see lobster, yes, we see crab, yes, but I don't see live stream. We don't. Okay, so maybe again it's a cost effect. You are not competitive enough after you ship them the same size as what you produce local, but add another cost, logistic cost to it, so become not competitive. So again, it's a positioning in terms of the business that you don't compete with the size that locally produced, right? So these are the thing may be positioned wrongly, but in any case, we don't really see the live stream import into any market in that kind of scale. We haven't seen that yet. So most of the live animals are locally produced.
Thank you, Professor Lee. I think we will give you some rest. Now we will take we will take few questions first from our side.
Sure, sure.
I'll combine two questions. One question from the farmer, a participant is it possible, is it practical for a farmer to harvest 5 tons at a time and then transport it live? And the second question is, our presentation indicates that approximate cost of packing is about $15. Is it practical? Is it profitable? These are the two questions which are very, very relevant. So let me answer these questions. See, first of all, the harvesting methods has been shown in our presentation. Lift net or the drag net is most suitable, and it is possible to harvest 1 to 2 tons using a drag net in a systematic manner. And there is also a possibility to use harvest pumps, where there are harvest pumps which some farmers in India are using. I was told that it can take 10 tons of shrimp in 1 hour. So these are some of the harvest options we need to have, we can use to harvest shrimp in a very good condition so that it can be transported live. Now, having said that, we need to, whatever we have done at a field level is to, test it as per our field conditions. Now, the next step is to develop SOPs for, 3-4 scenarios. First scenario is for domestic sales. For example, Gopal has shown the broodstock bags, and that is most suitable for a domestic sales, whereby you can send the shrimp in these broodstock bags and bring back the bag. You can use it multiple times. You can bring down the cost of packaging drastically. There's no doubt on that. Second scenario for development of an SOP would be for transportation for live shrimp export to niche markets like China and Far East countries and Singapore. So we can definitely say, if you look at, somebody was asking what is the price of the shrimp, we have shown whether it is for 30 count. Usually the market prefers 40, 30 or 20 counts, bigger sizes. So the prices are all for bigger count, 30 count. And the profitability can be, see, the $15 is a landed price at Singapore. This is an indicative price. Here the per kilogram air freight cost is about 185 rupees, if I remember correctly. But if you are selling it to Dubai, the price will be less by another 100 rupees. So the average profit margin can be about $5 to $10 per kilogram. That is a very good profit margin. Now, we need to develop a SOP for transporting shrimp for live shrimp niche markets. I don't know how big is the market, how much we can export per day. Probably like 50 or 100 tons per day from India, from different airports is a possibility. So we can definitely go for standardization or SOP for live shrimp export. That is second aspect. Third will be transporting large quantities, 5 tons at a time, to a processing unit in a live condition. Why is it so? Some of our exporter friends who are attending this workshop may recall our webinar with the Chinese importer, where he was saying our competing countries like Ecuador or other countries are able to fetch much better price, 20 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents, even $1 more in the market, because they are able to bring the shrimp in a live condition to the processing unit and freeze it or cook it, and the quality is much, much superior. My colleague Dr. Ansar was saying that some of our farmers are doing the same thing. Dr. Manoj Sharma, who is attending this workshop, he has started a shrimp restaurant in Surat in Gujarat, where you can get excellent quality. I have not tasted it. My colleague has tasted it. He says that is one of the excellent quality succulent shrimp he has ever tasted. Because the reason is the shrimp is fresh from the farm to the restaurant. So that is where the business opportunity in a large scale lies. So all these things for domestic market, for export market, and for the processed shrimp market, the value addition at the processed shrimp market, this technology can be used, and a live SOP can be developed for each category. And also, I would suggest, there are researchers who are attending here in this workshop, exporters, farmers. We need to join together. See, for example, MPEDA did a field trial. We didn't check what was the oxygen level in the shrimp blood after we opened after 12 hours. Was it less or more? What was the ammonia content in the hemolymph of the shrimp? These are research areas which needs to be done before we develop a strong SOP. So next future, way forward, I would suggest would be to join together and try. And one question is about exporting from Trichy. He want to export from Trichy, and how can I? Because he says that he has connectivity to Singapore and Middle East and all that. How can I tie up with an exporter? Please contact our field office. We have a field office in Nagapattinam. We have a field office in Chennai, Tuticorin, whichever is closer. We will please contact them, and they will link you to the exporter, and we can definitely give it a try. And what you need to do is we need to develop an SOP for further refining the technology. Another question is black tiger shrimp ideal for live export? Yes. What the previous question about Bangkok to China, they were usually, I don't know right now what they are doing. When I was also involved in that project during my earlier stint in Infofish Malaysia, we tried to develop this organic shrimp, and then they try to export in a live condition. They could get very good price that time. So they had done it with black tiger shrimp. Black tiger shrimp is, in my experience, is much more easier than Vanami shrimp for live transport. And the comparison. The next question is on comparison of chilled and live shrimp and frozen. Of course, the highest price is for live shrimp. The next highest will be for fresh shrimp, and the third will be for frozen shrimp. Of course, value addition will be there. So that is a third question. The next question I have answered. And again, what is the next question? Indicative price we have mentioned. What is the demand? There are a couple of questions on demand on scampi, the freshwater shrimp. Which market has demand, and what is the price and all that. We do not know the price of live scampi, and the markets, Far East, Southeast Asian countries all prefer live animals, whether it is live shrimp, live scampi, or live the grouper or any other fish. They like live. Even in India, people like. So all these markets are very good, and Middle East also. Middle East also, certain fishes, certain groupers are preferred in a live or a fresh immediately after, before rigor mortis comes in, before the shrimp becomes hardened, or the fish becomes hardened. They prefer certain variety of groupers. So all these markets are good for live freshwater prawn. And the other question is, what is the water used at importers and to recondition the shrimp? And do they use fresh water or saline water? Definitely they have to use saline water. They use saline water to recondition the shrimp. And we need to, give them, talk to them about what salinity we are sending. I think we have answered most of the questions. One question is, we are already doing a live shrimp for local market, trying to export. Is it possible to get license and everything? Yes, you can go to your nearest MPEDA office. You need to get, first of all, you need to get 3 licenses. One is export-import code, which is online, and then you can go to MPEDA for registration, and EIA for their license approval also. All these three approvals or licenses can be, I think, can be easily obtained in a week's time. So you can approach our office. Our office will help you. I think we have covered most of the questions, and now I would request Professor Lee. Professor Lee, do you have anything more to add?
Certainly is. I think you guys should also look into the low voltage electrostatic field. That is actually improve the quality of the fresh produce. So I think that one's interesting. We can, so while we're solving the live seafood shipment issue, but the fresh produce, if we can freeze them under that environment, prevent the forming ice crystal in the midst, that is very powerful products. So basically, is you get a new certification if that is possible from somewhere, some agency in India to certify this is better quality because of this and that. That is something that I think we should look at, and it's new. Okay, so this technology is very, very new. So that will give the head start for any early adopter. Just adopt it and then it moved. Yeah, so I think the processing plant should start to look into this, how to process it, and then you store them, freeze them under these conditions, which is easy. It can be as big as a room or as small as a little box. It doesn't matter because it's just a electrostatic generator. It's a low voltage, so it's very, very safe. You can walk in and out, will not shock you to death. So it's actually okay. So right now in AIC, we have to look into is how can I use it in live animals as well, right? So improve the delivery oxygens, improve the shipping of the live animals by compiling with fine bubbles. That's what we are working on at this moment. But while we're doing that, it immediately can be used for fresh produce. Yeah, freeze them under these conditions, and then you can prevent water damaging, the ice crystal damaging the muscle. And then when the customer cook it, and we'll find it less leakage of water, less shrinkage of the meat content, because our time when we cook, everything's shrunk. Yeah, older the meat, smaller is the thing. And then once it's shrunk, after it's cooked, it's very chewy. You can't bite. Yeah, because that is water loss due to the poor freezing environment caused by water crystal is standard. That's why we know the food can be preserved in deep freezing environment. But the thing is, by the time you cook it, it's just become a piece of fiber. It's no longer tender in that sense. So this technology can give you guys so-called higher value when we start to ship fresh. So in other words, it's not frozen, but like fresh. Am I getting it? So it's not the frozen stream. It's a frozen stream, but with a fresh stream quality. And hopefully can have a price between the fresh stream and also the frozen in between, right? Because it's frozen, processed, but frozen it to retain the quality of freshness. So we may not be able to compete like fresh, but we can be in between the two. Yeah, that will give the higher value. So that is my last so-called sharing. Hopefully, MPEDA, your side can champion it again. Then we can look into another project.
Thank you, Professor Lee. Indeed, it's a very interesting area. Probably we can think of another workshop on this. Please start working on that. Identify a couple of experts also. We can have a workshop in a very short time. And with this, Dr. Mr. Roshi, Mohit, Mr. Mohit, would you like to say something? Otherwise, I would ask my colleague, Dr. Ansar, to say the final word of thanks, and he will be able to conclude. There are a couple of questions coming in. Most of the questions are in general nature. I'm just combining it. I don't want to leave any questions unanswered. So the question is, can we apply this technology for bigai, that is a gastropod mollusk? Can we apply this for crab, soft shell, live crab, and can we apply this for soft shell crab? The answer is everything is possible. We need to do the further trials, and my humble request to whoever is attending this workshop is let exporters, farmers and researchers please come together and we can do trial together. Professor Lee and his team is there to help us. So we can do further pilot projects and standardize the protocol. And like somebody was asking about 5 tons transport, live harvest and transporting to processing unit or even to export. Definitely we can give it as a pilot project to do it, but we have to do it together. Neither MPEDA alone cannot do it, exporter alone cannot do it, or Professor Lee alone cannot do it. We have to join together. That synergy will be tremendous. So we should try to do that. Mohit, anything else? No, thank you. So I would request Dr. Ansar Ali, my colleague, who was supporting us silently during the entire program. I would like him to say the word of thanks and conclude the program. Thank you everyone for participating. I request Dr. Ansar to start. Yeah.
So it's almost 3 o'clock in India. A very lengthy but useful workshop. 6 o'clock in Singapore, a useful workshop. The live stream transport, a subject relevant maybe today, and it will have more relevance in the coming days. Not only for export, but for transportation from farm to the processing plant to have a high quality final product. First of all, I would like to thank the Singapore team led by Ms. Audrey, Director Economic Development, Professor Lee Chivi, Mr. Mohit, and other members of the Singapore team, Mr. William, and other members of the Singapore team for coordinating and making it a successful one. I would like to thank our Honorable Chairman, sir, for giving the introductory remarks and for giving the necessary approvals for all these programs. Our Director, Dr. Karthikeyan, usually supports us for all our endeavors, and I thank Dr. Karthikeyan for giving the introductory remarks. Our MPEDA team, led by Joint Director Mr. Anil Kumar, Dr. Ganesh, Dr. Anand Gopal, and Sri Arvekarshu, was behind the field trial and was also behind this presentation, making a lot of trials, making it perfect, and it came out very good, very nice. So I thank each one of them for making this presentation and the field trial study earlier they conducted and making this very successful. I would like to thank the exporters, the farmers, the Farmer Association representatives, IPR Mohan Raju, Dr. Manoj Sharma, the shipping liners, the Research Institute members, SIFA, CMFRI, CFT, and all other stakeholders who participated in this program. Then finally, not the least, I would like to thank all our MPEDA colleagues who supported this program. Dr. Jibin, Srimati Elsamma, Dr. Ragesh Thomas, and all other teams supported this event. Thank you. Thank you, Anand.
Thank you. Now I am in mask. Thank you everyone for your support, and please do, all the participants, whatever questions you have, you can email to our field officers. We will try to answer as much as possible and try to work together and achieve the aim of transporting shrimp everywhere in a live condition. Thank you very much. Mohit, thank you very much. Professor Lee, thank you.